So I welcome Dr. Javed Ahmed, and let's welcome him and for the talk.
Thank you very much, sir, for this introduction. Good morning, everybody. So I think today the discussion is all about Web 3.0, the future of Internet. So first of all, I need to know from the audience who know about Web 3.0. What is Web 3.0? Anybody? Okay, thank you very much. So actually, agenda for today's talk is first of all the introduction of Web 3.0 and how Web 3.0 is going to revolutionize the internet. So we'll talk about this, and then we will talk about how this Web 3.0 evolved. Initially, we had traditional web that is known as Web 1.0. Then from Web 1.0, we went to Web 2.0, and now we are in the phase of developing Web 3.0. So we have to discuss the evaluation and how the role of user has changed throughout in these generations of the web. We will also look into the details of Web 3.0 and key technologies which are trying to enable Web 3.0. We will also look on the benefits of Web 3.0, and we will see currently how much is the market acceptance or adoption of Web 3.0. And ultimately, we will look into the challenges and concerns which are associated with Web 3.0. And finally, the main takeaway for today's discussion is what is actually the role of Pakistani higher education institutions to basically produce workforce for Web 3.0. Is our current curriculum ready to face this challenge of Web 3.0? Are we trying to align our curriculum to this new challenge? So we will look into these details. And finally, I will get some questions from you. So first of all, I have been introduced by my colleague very well. So we leave this slide. If we talk about Web 1.0, in early phase of internet, we had static web pages. In those static web pages, the status of user was just consumer. For example, if you go to the site of nu.edu.pk, this site is mostly presenting the content which you need to consume only. You are the consumer. Okay, so you have no more role. There are static pages which we are browsing only. So this is traditional Web 1.0. So when we talk about Web 1.0, it's all about static web. If we go to the sites like Twitter, Facebook, and wikis, now this is transformation of web from 1.0 to 2.0, and this 2.0 web is also known as social web, where collaboration is the order of the day. And in this, the role of user has changed. Initially, the users were just consumers in Web 1.2. When we talk about Web 2.0, the role of user is content creator. And you see there are so many vloggers around. There are users who are contributing billions of pieces of content on Facebook, Twitter. And as we know that in 21st century, the oil is data. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to create basically data for intermediaries, for basically giants like Facebook, Google, and they are harvesting the benefits of data of the user. Ultimately, user is not going to get the benefit out of that data much. So what we are trying to see is now in Web 2.0, the user is content creator and he is also content manager. If you look into Facebook, you decide what content is available to which audience. Like if you talk about Facebook, it's going to perform segregation on 3 C's. So you have your content, and then you have your context, and then there's the context. So depending on your content, the contexts are being identified. Either you have a strong tie with somebody or you have a weak tie with somebody. And then that contact comes from certain context. And according to the context, your content is being shared. So you as a user decide whether the post you're sharing is accessible to everybody, to your friends of friends, or it's only for you. So the role of user has altogether changed. So user has become content creator as well as content manager in Web 2.0. So this is social web. When we talk about semantic Web 3.0, this web is now basically going to transform the web into social semantic web. So first of all, we need to understand the term semantic web. The father of web is known as Tim Berners-Lee. You know Tim Berners-Lee? So Tim Berners-Lee has given idea of Web 1.0 as well as he has also given the idea of Semantic Web, Web 3.0. So Semantic Web is basically web in which your machines are going to perform job more than you. So for example, currently if you go and Google, most of the content which you access from Google as a search is basically what you have to do. You have to filter out which content is relevant and which content is not relevant. So if we talk about semantic web, in that situation, your machine become intelligent. It's able to process the data. And currently you see ChatGPT. So what ChatGPT is doing, it's going to get context from you and it's going to perform conversation with you and giving the result which is more appropriate. So it's, to the point and according to requirements. So here intelligence comes. So what intelligence we introduce into the content is basically by developing ontological models. So machine processable, machine readable data are, the data in which machine can understand the semantic of our data is known as a Web 3.0. So this web, social semantic web, is a Web 3.0. So here there is another story which we need to understand. So actually in Web 2.0, in a social web, there's a concept of intermediaries. There are giants like Facebook, Twitter, Google. They are harvesting the benefits from the user data. And what user is getting a gratis service, a free service. Against free service, we trade our data. So in Web 3.0, the concept is also, basically you have to decentralize. You have to make your users basically powerful. What they are going to do, you are going to basically remove the intermediaries from the scene, and you are going to basically promote peer-to-peer decentralized internet. So this is actually overall journey between these three basically phases of web development. Web 1.0, which was a traditional web, Web 2.0, which was social web, and Web 3.0, which was social semantic web. Now if we look into the Web 3, enabling technologies for Web 3 is actually semantic web, and we have basically decentralization and AI integration. So if we talk about Web 3.0, so here we need to focus on these key technologies of Web 3.0. Okay, semantic web. As I already told you, in semantic web, what happened? For example, you are interested to generate, a kind of a application in which user has to give their preferences. For example, if you're interested to, order a pizza. So normally what we try to do in pizza, we know there is kind of a, thick layer, which is known as the base of the pizza, and then all on the pizza are actually the toppings. So if we are going to make web semantic, in that situation, what we're trying to do, we are trying to develop ontological models. In those ontological models, we will define what is actually the base, of the pizza. In that base, if the base is basically thick, in that situation, pizza can be more of a traditional American pizza. Like American pizzas are always thick base pizzas. And we are trying to bring a base which is basically thin. In that situation, pizzas mostly with thin base are Italian pizzas. So it means we are going to give definition for the pizza base. If base is thin or base is thick, depending on the thin or thick base, we will be able to infer whether pizza comes from Italy or whether pizza comes from America. Okay, so Americana pizza or Italian pizza. So on the top of it, we have basically the toppings. For example, if we talk about mozzarella, the definition for mozzarella pizza can be you have tomato topping and you have a cheese topping. So if we define for a machine, if there are two toppings and one is of a tomato and the other of a cheese, so in that situation, base is also thin. So this is Italian mozzarella pizza. So it means by building, ontologies, you are going to basically make machine intelligent. And now your machine is able to basically process your requirements. So what we are going to do, our applications using Jana or Java technology are going to give your preferences about the pizza, and then machine will be able to decide what kind of pizza you are actually interested in. In the very simple manner, you can also give requirements for halal pizza. So what halal pizza is? For example, we design a pizza which is basically with toppings of vegetable and cheese. Do you think there is meat involved in this? Not at all. So when meat is not involved, all the pizzas with cheese toppings and vegetable toppings are halal. So machine will be able to decide whether a certain pizza is halal or haram. So if there is involvement of a meat, in that situation you have to think of whether pizza is halal or haram. So what I'm trying to tell you is semantic web make things machine readable, machine understandable, and machine processable. So this is basically achieved with ontological models, and the tools which we used to make semantic web are basically ontologies, Java technologies like Jana. So this make web more semantic. So decentralization. This is another important issue. If we look into the situation, there is a huge intermediaries are basically, we talk about service providers, we talk about giants. So in 2008, there was basically a revolution in US due to global financial crisis. Okay, due to global financial crisis, there were so many financial institutions that declared themselves bankrupt. Okay, the reason they declared themselves bankrupt was recession. So they were basically declaring bankrupt because of recession. So when an institution like financial institution, a bank, declares bankrupt, it does not mean the owners of the bank become bankrupt. Okay, only they refuse what they are going to pay to their stakeholders. For example, recently we have heard news. Okay, this was break by Mandiwala politician. He said that in Pakistan, only government of Pakistan ensure that if you have up to 500,000 your account, and if bank declares itself bankrupt, so government will only protect your 500,000. And if you have more money, for example, you have 1 million in your account, you have 2 million in your account, only 500,000 or 0.5 million will be protected by the government, and rest is your issue with the bank. So you choose your bank wisely. So what I'm trying to tell you, so these intermediaries in global financial crisis, they declare themselves bankrupt. So it does not mean their owner become bankrupt. It simply means they refuse their stakeholders to pay their money. So in that situation, there was a resentment in US, and they introduced a movement called crypto anarchist movement. So this crypto anarchist movement became very popular. In 2008, then there comes a guy that is called Satoshi Nakamoto. And Satoshi Nakamoto given a concept paper about, a money system which is without financial institutions, which is without intermediaries. So this was basically introduction of a blockchain technology in 2008. And one of the use cases of blockchain technology which was introduced in 2008 was Bitcoin. So it simply means you are removing intermediaries, you are removing banks, and you are doing financial transactions. So is that possible? Yes, this is possible because Bitcoin is one of the successful ventures. So how they remove intermediaries? So they remove intermediaries by trusting the math and cryptography. So this is basically the role of decentralization. So now internet is going towards where you remove intermediaries, where the service providers have no more role. So peer-to-peers are going to basically serve each other. So one of the best model of peer-to-peer on internet is BitTorrent. Everybody from you is using BitTorrent, but there's not a service provider over there. Peers are serving each other. So when you see a link you want to download, either you have leechers over there or you have seeders over there. And more the seeders you have, it means you will be able to get content very quickly. So it means without involvement of a third party, we can basically use web. Enabling technology for decentralization is a blockchain. And blockchain is basically underlying technology of Bitcoin as well. So Bitcoin is popular because of blockchain. So what blockchain gives? If we talk about blockchain, there are certain features which blockchain provides. One is basically immutability. When we talk about immutability, it means once you enter something into blockchain, now this is writing on the stone. It will never change. Okay? So this feature is called immutability. And the second feature blockchain gives is basically transparency. So once you write something into the blockchain, it's accessible to everybody. So blockchain is permissionless. Okay? You do not need any membership to enter into Bitcoin blockchain. What you have to do, basically, you have to download a client, and then with the help of that client, you're connected with blockchain. So it simply means every transaction recorded in blockchain is visible to everybody else. So there comes the question of a privacy. If there is a transparency, how to ensure privacy? So privacy is ensured in blockchain. You do not provide your identity. In blockchain, you are working basically pseudonymously. You have basically keys, and with the help of those keys, you are actually connected with the blockchain. So you have a private key, you have public key, and with the help of those keys, you generate your addresses. And those addresses are basically your identity in a blockchain environment. So in that situation, you are preserving your privacy as well. Without revealing anything about you, you are basically performing peer-to-peer transactions. So in this simple situation, with the benefit of a mutable ledger and transparency, we basically go to decentralization. Okay, then, one of the benefits of this, Web 3.0 is AI integration. If you see on internet, now the internet has become very important after generative technologies, after ChatGPT. So means in that situation what happens? Your systems which you are interacting with are basically going to profile you, and they are going to basically give you recommendations based on your profile. So it means if you interact with any AI system, it's going to basically look into your search details. It's going to look into your browsing history, and depending on your search details and browsing history, it's going to give you a personalized experience. So with integration of AI, what we are trying to do in Web3 is basically we are trying to give a personalized experience to the users. So this part is also involved in Web3. So Web3 is basically you have kind of a semantic web, you have then decentralizing technologies with the help of a blockchain, and then you have AI, which is going to give you personalized experience. So these ingredients are going to make this future of internet that is called Web3. Okay, benefits of Web3: increased security, enhanced privacy, user empowerment, interoperability, and trustless transactions. Let us talk about increased security. So when we talk about increased security, let us take example of cryptography. If we talk about cryptography, there is a very important term which is called public keys. PKI we call it, public infrastructure. What happens in cryptography, users in some situations are trying to encrypt text with symmetric key. Means there is only single key for encryption of a plain text, and on the destination, the same key is used to basically decrypt that plain text. So in PKI, what we have asymmetric keys. So means we have on the one end private key and public key, they both are basically mutual. What happens if you are interested to encrypt? What you will do, you will encrypt something with the private key of the destination. For example, I'm interested to send something to Dr. Sarfaraz. Okay, so in that situation, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to encrypt with something with the public key of Dr. Sarfaraz. So it means nobody in the world can decrypt it without Dr. Sarfaraz because he has his public key. Okay, so it means this is going to achieve encryption. But what we need in blockchain is not encryption, but verification, signature and verification. So what happens if I'm interested to send something to Dr. Sarfaraz, and Dr. Sarfaraz should be sure it's only myself who has sent something. So what I can do is I sign something with my private key, and my public key is available to everybody, including Dr. Sarfaraz. So he can verify with my public key, this comes from Javed, because nobody else has his private key. So non-repudiation is achieved with this, scenario. So with the help of a cryptography, what we are trying to do, we are basically enhancing security in Web 3.0. What about privacy and user empowerment? I already told you, if you go to bank and you create your account, what you have to do, you have to give your, details, like you have to give your CNSE, you have to give your, passport number. If you are, refugee, you are in Pakistan and you're interested to open a bank account. Are we able to create accounts for the refugees? Recently, there are so many refugees in Europe. There was influx of refugees in Germany, for example. So until and unless you become citizen, and you have identities, you cannot become part of a banking system. So what we do in blockchain, only you need is public and private keys and addresses. So there is no need to reveal your identity. When you are not known by your identity, you are known by the addresses and public and private keys. It means you are basically performing transactions privately. So nobody knows you are performing these transactions. And for every transaction, you can generate another pair of keys. So there is one risk problem. In Pakistan, we talk about money laundering. Okay, so in that scenario, if somebody is using this technology like cryptocurrencies, so he has immunity. So nobody can trust people because they are not revealing their identity. What they are doing, they are creating a pair of keys, and with those pair of keys, they are basically performing transactions, and nobody knows who is behind these pair of keys. And for each transaction, they can have different pair of keys. So means there is privacy, and then the other term is user empowerment. So to discuss user empowerment, I just come back to this, intermediaries like Facebook, like Google. In this case, these intermediaries have your huge data. But when we talk about internet with peer-to-peer situation, so in that situation, there is no intermediary. When you remove intermediary, in that situation, you are giving control of the data to the user. So user has more control on their data. So if we look into the latest legislation of European Commission, that is called GDPR. Journal Data Protection Regulation. So Journal Data Protection Regulation is giving two fundamental rights to the user, and one of the right is basically right to be forgotten. Okay? For example, if you talk about Facebook, Facebook has three things you need to keep in mind. Number one, your audience are invisible. Don't think only people in your friend circle are only your audience. For example, if your friend circle, you post something, if anyone from your friend circle like your post, it means now that post is visible to the friends of a friend. Okay? So this is a second degree access. So it simply means when you post something, you should not realize only the people in the friend list will be able to see. And if anyone from your friend list is going to interact with that post, that will have second degree access, third degree access, and so on. So it simply means, there is invisible audience. The second feature which online social network gives is, that is basically persistence. If you post something today when you are a student in university, after 10 years when you are employed somewhere, your post is over there on internet, and anybody can search and see what you were doing when you were in university. So it simply means, you have basically some posts which you have, posted 10 years ago are creating problem in your life today. So it means this power of persistence is one of the major issues we need to understand before posting anything on social media. Okay? And then the third thing, which is a context collapse. According to government is a social theorist. We are very good, in physical world, what we are trying to do. We are, basically segregating the context. We have family context, we have an institutional context, so we have friends from these contexts, and we share information according to basically the context. But on social media like Facebook, context is collapsed. Your father is there, your colleagues from university are there, your teachers are there, everybody is connected with your profile. So there is a context collapse. So what happened? Right to be forgotten, which was introduced in GDPR, is the right to any citizen of European Union. If they ask Facebook, just delete our data from your servers, Facebook is bound to delete. So do you think Cambridge Analytica scandal was simple? In Cambridge Analytica scandal, Mark Zuckerberg was called to American Senate, and he had a hearing over there. What was the reason for this scandal? Facebook platforms are providing opportunity to third parties. They can integrate their application with Facebook and harvest huge amount of user data. So in Cambridge Analytica, what was understood, there was a third-party application which basically was integrated with Facebook, and that third-party application harvested huge amount of user data. So it simply means that it's not possible for service provider to give you right to be forgotten. Maybe he can delete his data, your data from his server, but those third parties who has harvested data from Facebook server before Facebook deletes that data means that's over there in their dossiers, and that will remain forever. So right to be forgotten is one of the important rights which GDPR gives. And then other right is basically consent. So for example, मैं थोड़ा सा उर्दू में आपको एग्जाम्पल देता हूँ. शर्मीन उबैद चनाया को everybody knows. ओके, शर्मीन उबैद चनाया ने कुछ अर्सा पहले कहा था कि मेरी बहन एक डॉक्टर के पास गई और डेफिनेटली आप फॉर्म फिल करते हैं तो वहां पे उसने अपना फोन नंबर भी लिखा। अब फोन नंबर उसने क्यों रिवील किया? क्योंकि डॉक्टर इलाज मुआवजे में उसकी हेल्प करे, उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट के अंदर उसने अपना कॉन्सेंट दिया और अपनी इंफॉर्मेशन दी। लेकिन डॉक्टर साहब रात को उन्हें फोन करके जो है ना प्रपोज कर रहे हैं। सो दिस इज बेसिकली मिसयूज। ओके, a patient comes and gives personal information for a certain context and that is used out of context. So this is what European Commission is trying to ensure. When you share any information with these giants like Facebook, Google, you should give consent. So consent should be volunteer. ऐसा ना हो कि जबरदस्ती आपसे consent लिया जाए. When you talk about cookies, you go to website, you have to accept all. If you don't accept, you will not be able to use service. So this is forceful consent. So consent should be volunteered and then it should be fine-grained, okay? For a specific purpose, not bundled for everything. आपने phone number दे दिया तो डॉक्टर साहब की मर्जी है रात को 12 बजे फोन करें, 1 बजे फोन करें. No, डॉक्टर साहब can only use this number for the medical consultation. So means consent should be specific and then consent should be fine-grained. So means consent volunteer ho, for a specific purpose ho or forcefully given na ho. So this is what European Commission is trying to basically see. European citizens, when they give consent, their data should be used accordingly. और अगर कोई European citizen साबित कर दे Facebook ने consent के बाहर उसका data use किया है तो they can fine to Facebook up to 4% of his annual revenue. That's a fortune. So do you understand? So with these laws, user is getting more control. So what I'm talking about, user empowerment. With Web 3.0, there is a huge user empowerment. And ultimately interoperability. So, when we talk about N-tier applications or 3-tier applications, what happens? We have front end, then we have a business logic in the middle, and then we have a back end, normally database. In case of a blockchain technology and back end, we have DLT, distributed ledger technology. And in the middle, we have smart contracts. So with these smart contracts, they give us, standardized protocols with which interoperability increases. So this is one of the features of basically Web 3.0. And then trustless transactions. So what is trustless transaction? So when you talk about, trusted environment, what happens? You get membership. आपके यहाँ मुख्तलिफ शहरों में जिम खाना होते हैं, तो आप क्या करते हैं? उन जिम खानास के अंदर membership लेते हैं. So means now you are trusted, you are part of that gym khana and you can go there. So trustless environment is you don't need to be a member. But what happens? You have a certain protocols. With those protocols, you can establish trust. So one of the features of blockchain is it's basically a trust machine. This is creating trust. So enabling technologies for trust are basically these, cryptographic technologies. So trustless environment के अंदर आपको क्या मिलता है? You get basically security with cryptography and transparency. And one of the use cases of trustless environment is DeFi, okay, decentralized finance. This is becoming reality without involvement of any financial institution and intermediaries. We have basically decentralized finance, okay, DeFi. So one of the adoption of Web 3.0 currently is basically we have DeFi's in place, and there are marketplaces where people invest and there is no intermediary. यानी फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर सोशल नेटवर्क ऐसा बन जाए जिसमें आप डेटा कंट्रीब्यूट करो और आपके डेटा के अगेंस्ट जितने भी व्यूज हो आपको रैंकिंग आपकी रेटिंग हो और अकॉर्डिंगली यू बी शुड बी पेड. So it means this is here, there is no giant involved, so there is no intermediary, peer-to-peer involvements are there, and with the help of those peer-to-peer involvement we get benefited accordingly. And then non-fungible tokens. You see, copyright is one of the major issues in this world. Okay, in third world, copyright is one of the major issues. So for the artwork, you have non-fungible tokens, NFTs. So this is again one of the adoption of Web 3.0. And then we are talking about a blockchain-based social network. So this is also one of the adoptions of basically Web 3.0. The companies or initiatives which are behind Web 3.0 are Ethereum, Polkadot, and we have Filecoin and Consensus. Okay, so these are some of the companies which are behind this. So what we need to basically take away from this discussion, web is transforming, okay, from traditional web to Web 3.0. Okay, our Pakistani higher education institutions are prepared to meet this new challenge? Do we have curriculum accordingly? Okay, do we teach blockchain, DeFi, smart contracts, Ethereum to our students? Okay, we need to think on this. So we have to revise our curriculum to face the challenge. Okay, and the challenge is, next generation of internet. So we have to prepare graduates accordingly. And then we need to understand our faculty should be trained to impart that curriculum. Okay, if we have a curriculum which is up to date, then we need to train our faculty. And of course, R&D is one of the factors. Means this is one of the initiative which has started. So Pakistan get their share by doing R&D. So are we performing any industrial partnerships, and we're trying to develop anything related to Web 3.0 which can click worldwide and generate a revenue for Pakistan? And of course, in every university now there is a concept of incubation centers. Do we have incubation centers where we basically mature or nurture startups related to Web 3.0 and blockchain? So this is some of the things which we need to understand. As a Pakistani institution, we should basically focus early and develop curriculum accordingly, train our faculty. And if there is any possibility, we nurture such startups. So I think with this, I end my task. So Web 3.0 is a reality. We need to prepare accordingly. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Javed Ahmed, for a very insightful talk on Web 3. So if there are any questions, so you can ask. We can take one or two questions because we have running out of time. So any questions?
What are the challenges we have to implement blockchain in our government?
Okay, I'm going to talk about government institutions. First of all, we need to think of the situations where blockchain can be used. One of the major issues in our country, term Patwari. Everybody knows. Okay, Patwari means he is very powerful person in bureaucracy. Okay, so he's only powerful because he can transfer land of anybody to anyone else without knowing जिस बंदे की जमीन है किसी और के तरफ ट्रांसफर हो गई उस बंदे को पता भी नहीं है. So one of the situation where we can digitize is basically this land record management can be digitized. And then there is another scenario where we can use blockchain. आपने अक्सर सुना होगा डिग्री तो डिग्री होती है असली हो या जाली. Okay, असलम रईसानी. So इसका मतलब यह है कि there should be degree verification systems. So these are some of the use cases where Pakistani government can basically use blockchain technology. Now, if there is use of blockchain technology, there are certain issues. The issues on government sides are things are basically going to become transparent. And this is what is the major hurdle in the adoption of a blockchain. Maybe our bureaucracy, maybe our the government stakeholders are not trying to make everything transparent. In Europe, there is a concept right to information. Every citizen has right to information, but in Pakistan, maybe we are not mature enough to get right to information. So if blockchain-based systems are being promoted and they are being adopted on government level, so there are few things they have problem with. There is no change. If you insert something as a block, that will remain same forever, writing on a stone, immutability, and then there is a transparency. Every stakeholder involved can see the transaction in that original form. It will never change. So transparency and immutability are some of the challenges which government need to face. And as far as supply, as far as scenarios, use cases are concerned, I've already told you two. One is land record management, which is one of the major issues of Pakistan, and the other is basically educational, credential verification. Then this is also another major issue of Pakistan.
Okay, I also have one question. Dr. You mentioned that in Web 3.0 we will have increased security, but also we will have a personalized experience.
Yes.
So these two things look very conflicting because if you give a personalized experience, so you compromise on privacy and security.
Okay, great. There are two terms we need to understand. One is anonymous, the other is pseudonymous. So what we try to do in underlying technology of blockchain, we are not knowing individual by their actual identities. They have certain mask, and that mask is their address. Okay, that mask is their private and public keys. address is generated from them. So that particular address, maybe I own it or you own it. So this personalized experience is for that address, not for an individual. So means we have a pseudonymous identity. Okay, so we are wearing mask, and that mask basically identify us for that masked person. There is a personalized experience. So we are basically trying to preserve identity through this.
Thank you, Dr. Javed. So let's put hand together for.
Thank you very much.